All right, so we're gonna look at the Bark River Michigan Hunter. And this knife is actually derived from the Blackjack Model 125 Heavy Hunter. So the main difference being the blade steel, the stock thickness of the steel, and also the handle. So the handle with the Michigan Hunter is actually the same as the handle on the Manitou, which, as you can see right here, I'm going to put there for comparison. They are very similar. Very similar sheath, a little bit shorter blade, and shorter overall length, but the sheaths are pretty much identical. Just one's a little bigger. But anyway, so going back to this knife here, I'm going to just put this off to the side so it's not distracting, because it's a gorgeous knife. So this knife here, this particular one is green canvas micarta, and it's a matte finish. So the aluminum guard and pommel are not polished. So it actually looks deceivingly like stainless steel, but it's not. A nice choil to choke up on. A good size handle. Blade stock thickness on this, I think, is 160 thou. You see it's a little thinned out there, so it's probably not going to be a little bit. It is 160 on the specs, I believe. So yeah, it's thereabouts. Yeah, the dogs are jumping around in their kennel there. So nice slicey blade. A lot lighter feeling than the 125 Blackjack, but same blade shape. Just handle is different. Very comfortable handle, large handle. A little bit finer tip than the Mountaineer, which is this one here, or the Manitou, sorry. Handle is actually ever so slightly longer on the Michigan Hunter. I did not realize that. I thought they were the same. They are the same shape, but not the same size. And the handle on this one is actually a little thicker, just probably because of the wood. You can see the contouring. My fat thumb's in the way. Both of these knives are in CPM Crewwear, which is an absolutely fantastic steel. I think a lot of people that might be looking at this would want to know what it's like in comparison to the Manitou. So that's kind of what I'm going to focus on when I'm looking at this knife here. So the main difference, obviously, the blade shape, still similar. The cutting edge is a little bit longer on the Manitou, and it's not quite as broad a blade, and it's also a little bit thinner. I'll get you a measurement here on the Manitou, because it's, I believe, 150. No, same stock thickness, but it's a more delicate grind. So whereas the 125 was considered a heavy hunter, I wouldn't consider this a heavy hunter. It's still a fairly fine tip on it. Nowhere near as fine as the Manitou. I keep saying Mountaineer because I just did the video on the Mountaineer too, so it's kind of throwing me for a loop. We're gonna look at here is the thickness behind the edge, because that's gonna give you a real good idea as far as what the cutting geometry is like compared to the Manitou. I'm gonna be forever confusing the Manitou and the Mountaineer here. So if I can get this just right, so where it's about a millimeter up from the apex, we're about Oh, maybe a little bit. We're under 20 thou. Definitely under 20 thou. So it's a thin knife behind the edge. So, but this one, I bet you this one is considerably thinner. I don't even want to know what it's. Yeah, wow, like 10 thou behind the edge. This thing is an absolute screaming laser, man. So that gives you an idea. This is twice as thick, geometry-wise, than the Manitou. So if we were to go up to this point on the blade as a reference point, we'll get a thickness. I'm gonna scratch my damn knife though. We're looking at 90 thou. Okay. Now, on the Manitou, at the same exact spot, it's about the same actually. But that difference is actually going to be made up because the broadness of the blade is not nearly as broad. The tip is way finer on the Manitou. Well, if we just do geez, I'm going to try and get it so we are it's really hard to do, especially when you can't see it. Say 44,000. So how about we just do this? We're going to see where 50 thou is. Or damn well close to it anyways, where that is on this blade when you go up from the tip. So I'm not sure if you can see that. This is on the Manitou. That's 50 thou. Okay, 50 thou. And you see, they're both very slicey blades. So this is ever so slightly heavier. It's got a really nice feel. The handle, I noticed the handle being more spacious and a little better feeling in my hand. I like that extra length. My hand does kind of swallow up that handle, even though it's a little longer compared to the Manitou. The pommel is way under my palm of my hand when I'm gripping it. So, but it still feels really good. A little heavy, little more hand filling, and that could just be this particular knife. Maybe they didn't want to grind it down and contour it as much because it's a nice piece of wood. This is burl, desert ironwood burl. So this one here definitely feels really light in the hand. It's quite a different feeling to the knife actually. I like this. I really do like that. I've never really actually sat down and compared them. I like the balance of this better. This one's a little heavier in the handle. The balance is into the handle more, which I actually don't like it as much. Don't get me wrong, I do like it, but there is a difference. That does feel better in my hand, the balance of it. The handle does feel better in my hand as well. The extra length. We're going to get a tape measure on it. I don't know where the hell that hair came from because I don't have hair like that. So, probably catch glimpses of my bald ass head on the camera there. So, the handle length on the Manitou is a 4 1/4. The handle length on the Michigan Hunter is 4 1/2 basically. So it's an extra 1/4 inch, and that is very noticeable. This feels like a really nice knife in your hand. It really does feel good. The blade shapes are very similar. I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to really tell the difference. I mean, they're so similar. The cutting radius is very, very similar. They're almost the same. They're not much different. There's ever so slightly more belly on this, on the Michigan Hunter. And there's ever so slightly more of a straight cutting edge on the Manitou. The Manitou is a very, very nifty little knife. It's just a really good looking knife. But so is this. And the handle's actually more comfortable. I never really noticed that until just now, that there is a difference between these. I just assumed, because the handle is based off of the Manitou, that they were actually the same. I did not know that this was a longer handle. So I learned that right here on the camera. So overall length. Overall length is 9.5 inches on the Michigan Hunter and 9 inches on the Manitou. So if we looked at, let's grab some other hunting knives here that are similar in size and purpose. I've got a couple of Bravos. I will show you my Gameskeeper, because this is another fantastic knife. So Gameskeeper, this is a heavy hunter. So this is what I'm going to show you, because this will really give you an idea, because this knife in the blackjack version, the 125, is classified as a heavy hunter, and the stock thickness is 220 thou. So it's going to be pretty much the same. Now look at the difference. That's a heavy hunter. This is kind of a middle of the road weight. It's not as delicate as the Manitou, but it is nowhere near as heavy as this. When you pick up the Gameskeeper and you get it in your hand, it's like a Bravo, right? Like it's stout. You know, you can work this knife. You can, you know, pop joints. You can do all sorts of silly things with it that you probably shouldn't do with a knife, and you wouldn't get away with on lesser knives. So I would not be jamming this tip into the knee joint of a moose and popping a joint or hip joint or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, I would definitely use it to break down game, but you're going to have to take a little more care when you're doing that, because that is a fine tip. So whether you break it or you bend it, you're much more likely to do that than you are with this. You look just how, get that on camera where it can actually focus. This is a stout knife. Anyways, I got carried away with all these other knives. So yeah, going back, CPM Crewwear. It's an upgrade over 3V, in my opinion. 3V is an excellent steel. 3V beats out CPM Crewwear in terms of toughness. It also beats it out in terms of corrosion resistance. So those are the two main things where, you know, 3V is better than Crewwear. Now, I say better, you know, kind of tongue-in-cheek, loosely, because this stuff here is crazy tough. Like, I've got a Bravo 1.25 LT, and I was cutting the zap strap off of, it's basically a fender sort of frame support on a big truck, and I had a mishap, and I jammed the tip of that knife into 1/4 inch thick steel, and it barely damaged it. So that was my experience as far as learning how tough CPM crew wear really is, and it impressed the hell out of me. I couldn't believe it. So I think in all, normal everyday hunting, bushcraft, whatever you normally would do with a knife, you're going to find that this stuff is more than tough enough, and you're actually not going to see the benefit of the added toughness of 3V over crew wear. So what it really comes down to between those two steels for me is corrosion resistance. Am I worried that much about corrosion resistance that I'm going to choose 3V over crew wear? Because the toughness is kind of a moot point. So corrosion resistance is one factor. Another factor is the quality of the edge. 3V takes a wicked sharp edge, and it holds it really, really well. Crew wear does hold it better. And I find that crew wear sharpens up just as easy, if not easier, than 3V. I like it. I have an easier time sharpening this up to, an extremely high level of sharpness. And I just find it easier to get it there, compared to 3V. Not that you can't do it, but this is factory. This is not a factory fresh edge, but this is the edge that it came with. This knife has been used, hasn't really been dulled, but I haven't used it heavy. I've cut stuff with it. I don't even remember what I cut. I took it with me on a road trip and out in the bush, so I was doing some cutting. Oh yeah, I can tell that my Manitou, which hasn't been used, is sharper. Not much, but you can see it's just weird. Not catching the edge right. It's sharp. So, out of these two knives, I think this one's a prettier one. It's got my damn hair on it. Skin. But I think the Manitou is a really pretty knife. I think it's a prettier knife in a lot of ways than the Michigan Hunter. But functionally, I think between the two of them, I'd lean towards this. And the main reason is the extra length and handle and the slightly thicker edge geometry, because this thing still cuts. That is also possibly the reason why this one seems a little sharper on the paper, is the slight difference in edge geometry. A little thicker tip, but this is still a delicate knife in comparison to that Gameskeeper, for instance. So I don't have a Blackjack 125, but they just came out. If this is a knife that you like the looks of it, check out the Blackjack 125 if you're interested in this particular blade shape and you want a heavier blade. They're not in crew wear, they're in A2, which is a phenomenal steel. Kind of gets overlooked. I personally love it, and the biggest reason I love it is I love the fact that it sharpens so easily, and it also takes just an incredible edge. Whereas my tusk, here is my tusk. This takes 2 seconds to sharpen up. This gives you an idea just how sharp it gets. This is sharper. Like, you can't get much sharper than that. You can't get this level of sharpness out of steels that have very high carbide levels. Like this is where A2 shines. That's just the paper. It's not the reflection of how sharp it is. You can get an idea. This is razor sharp, man. Like, it is so sharp, and it is so easy to keep it that sharp and get it that sharp. Like, it's just, I don't want to do this too much. I end up having a hairless arm. So don't overlook A2. And it's tough shit. Like, it's, pardon my language, it's tough stuff. Like, it's really tough. I think, you know, in terms of toughness, it's marginally less tough than a crew wear. There's obviously a huge jump in toughness between A2 and 3V. But then again, you're probably not going to notice it, especially in a larger knife. Some of these really big knives, A2 is way better. It's cheaper, does everything you need, and it's easier to sharpen if you were to damage that edge, especially if you're swinging into tree branches or doing stuff where you're more likely to, you know, get a rock chip or something. Yeah, so A2 is a winner. 3V is a winner, and crew wear is a winner. That's the, oh, wrong knife. So anyways, that's not what I was trying to show you. I was trying to you can feel that edge being thin. It's hard to explain, but when it curls that wood away, you can feel the thinness of the edge. That's translated into your hand in the feedback. You can tell this is a slicer, you know, compared to this thing here. When this goes into that wood, like it really, you know you're dealing with a stout blade. This is delicate, but it's a really nice knife. It's an excellent hunting knife. You know, it's larger than what I would want for like deer hunting and stuff. Excellent for moose, excellent for elk, you know, medium-sized game. You could use it for bear. The main reason I think it's a little big is it's a little broad. You know, the Manitou being a little thinner might be a little better. Like, you know, if you're cutting underneath the tail and stuff, having that finer tip and, you know, not as wide and broad of a blade is a good thing. You know, for opening up a deer or something, this has got a good drop point. So, but this is definitely, it's a heavier knife. It's a big, well, not a heavier, but it's a bigger knife, right, than a lot of knives you'd want to choose for deer hunting. Comparatively, a knife I would take deer hunting any day is the Mountaineer 2. You can see the size difference, right? Huge. So it's not a small knife, but it's not a heavy knife. Carries nicely on the belt. The sheath is really nice. It's a light sheath. It's not heavy leather like some of them. So it's you know, not that noticeable on the belt. I mean, compared to a Bravo 1 sheath, it's, you know, it's a lot lighter. Yeah, this is a really nice knife. I think a lot of people would really like it and find it really useful. It's going to be, you know, a knife that excels in a variety of tasks as well, like food prep and, you know, even cleaning fish. I mean, you'd have no problems doing all sorts of things with this knife, where you're definitely more limited with, for instance, this knife being such a stout, you know, tank of a knife. I mean, this thing feels like a scalpel. This thing feels like a splitting maul. I mean, weight-wise, this is heavier, but this is just, you know, it's agile. It's quick, nimble. You know, this one it's heavy. Feels like you could split a rock with it. Both are excellent. You know, I think that kind of stuff really comes down to your personal preference, whether you want that heavy a knife, because you don't need it. You know, the one thing for me, just looking at these two side by side, because I haven't actually done it before this video, it's left me more impressed with this than I already was. It's left me with more of an appreciation for this knife. The other nice thing about this knife and this blade shape is it lends itself really well to being able to sharpen on a strop. I don't need my coarse side, but just it just works. It's got a nice blade geometry, forgiving. So that's another nice thing about that you can tell when you pick it up. Some knives are more awkward when you're trying to touch them up on a strop. This one definitely just, it's just easy. And crew wear is easy. I really love that steel. The other steel I really love that's in the same kind of class is CPM 4V. Bark River doesn't use it anymore. They say that, you know, it doesn't give anything up to this. I don't know. I prefer, well, I don't want to, I mean, I'm kind of talking out my ass to say that I prefer 4V over this, but what I can say is that 4V holds like an incredible edge. Like, it really does. I can't say I found that this competes with 4V. 4V, for me, in my experience, holds a better edge. And a noticeably better edge. There's some steels you just can't really tell the difference. 4V, you can tell the difference. Toughness wise, crew wear, I believe, is supposed to be tougher on paper than 4V. So it's a better balanced steel in most respects than 4V, and certainly 3V, which has its strengths and toughness and less in wear resistance. So yeah, this is a really good steel. I keep saying it. You know, I do these videos off the cuff. I don't write down a script or anything like that. I'm just, you know, shooting from the hip, speaking my mind, saying what, you know, comes to mind during the video. But you can't go wrong with that steel. Like, too many people overthink things though. But I will say that that is a steel I wouldn't even think twice about choosing a knife in. I would think twice about choosing a knife in CPM M4, because it's a pain in the ass to sharpen. It holds a really good edge. I don't find it holds a better edge than 4V, which I've had more experience using and sharpening and dulling than I have with crew wear. My crew wear knives I've used, I've never really let them get dull to the point where I've had to work hard to sharpen them. So I can't say with the same authority as I can with a 4V. You know, I don't know, 4V might hold an edge better than M4. Technically it's not supposed to, because it doesn't have the carbide volume, but it's a better steel in just about every respect. And crew wear, I think, is a better steel just about in every respect than M4 as well, for many of those reasons, being easier to sharpen, and it's also more corrosion resistant than M4. Chromium content on both crew wear and 3V is 7.5%, if I remember right. The biggest difference is that the carbon content is over 1% with crew wear versus about 0.8, so not quite a full percent of carbon in 3V. Vanadium content on a crew wear is slightly lower than 3V, so 3V has more vanadium, but crew wear, I believe, has a higher overall carbide volume in the steel compared to 3V, just because there's others contributing elements in the steel. Can't remember all the chemistry on that, but it does have slightly, like, a couple percent higher carbide volume over 3V, which is also why it holds its edge better, because the carbides are your main wear resistant factor in the steel. So yeah, there definitely are quite a few of these available still. So it's not like I'm showing you videos where you're like, oh, that guy's showing me videos and I can't even get the darn knife. You can get these. There's quite a few of them. You can still get a couple of these too. So that's nice. The Manitou and the Michigan Hunter are two beautiful little knives, but I think overall, functionally, and you know, for versatility, this is a better knife. I'm gonna say that right now. I didn't actually know that or think that before making this video, but initial impressions are, after making this video, that the Michigan Hunter is a more versatile, well-rounded knife. This is a fantastic knife, and you know, it's definitely more delicate, more fragile as far as how you use it and what you do with it. This is going to be a little tougher and a little more forgiving. Really comes down to personal preference. My personal preference is for a blade that's, you know, got thinner edge geometry, a little more delicate, and you know, that requires a little more careful use of it, right? So, but it's pretty apparent that this is a heck of a nice knife. I still kind of surprised, you know, that this feels better in the hand. Feels more balanced. Big part of that could just be the wood, but yeah, so definitely a good knife. I think I can say without a doubt that, you know, if you want a knife for hunting and, you know, just general use around a campsite or whatever, you can't go wrong with this. I wouldn't suggest this though as a knife for batoning. You know, there's better knives. If you want a knife for batoning, get a Bravo 1. You know, get something like that. But if you're looking for something that can do a lot more than that, and you know, be able to slice better, then that's definitely a good option for you. So holy moly, I'm looking at my timer here, 32 minutes I've been rambling. So well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and yeah, look forward to reading the comments. And as always, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.